Welcome to this section of Making Love Real in our worship. And today we have the privilege of having Wendy with us. Wendy works with Justa Center and identifies as a Christian. And so, Wendy, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to be a part of sharing this part of our worship service with us. And the first question I have for you, Wendy, is when we hear, as Christians, we hear quite frequently, the idea that God is love, God loves us, things like that. When you hear that, what does that mean to you that God is love? How does that resonate? M- how does that speak to you? How does that connect with you?
Well, I think for me, it's about how, what is the role of God in our lives besides creator, besides parent, the development, the boundary setter. Um, it resonates with me. I have a friend who wrote a book about called The God Who Trusts. And I realized trust has been a theme throughout my faith walk, that God has entrusted us with this world and our life. And we're supposed to live it out in a way that not just brings glory to Him, but that loves our neighbor as ourselves, that cares for the least of these, that is concerned about injustice, is concerned about all of the things that concern God. And so the relationship is one of trust, and frequently I don't live up to His trust. And that's part of the journey.
So that idea again, just to kind of make sure I heard you correct, is the idea of love. You tie very closely into this idea of trust.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I do. And I think that how that plays out in my life, sure, I lock my car. I'm not crazy. Um, but I believe in the inherent goodness of humanity. And so I address the world without prior assumptions. I always look for alternative explanations. Uh, I believe the best intentions of another person when they're saying or doing something.
Mm.
And those are all could put me in a position of being taken advantage of, hurt, betrayed. Um, but it's important that I lead with the way God leads me.
Wow. So you kind of set me up perfectly for my next question for you. And that is this idea of tying love into trust, and then how that not only affects your experience of God, but also how you relate to other people. So, how in a practical ways do you go about trying to make love real for other people and for the earth? And what role does you kind of hinted an element of how trust comes into that as how is you tie that other people. So is there any other thing as far as making love real for other people that comes to mind when you think about that?
The biggest change for me was to realize that help precedes hope, and hope
Wow.
is a predecessor of love. And so for
Oh, I'm going
me,
to pause you real quick because I think
okay.
you said something really powerful. Help precedes hope,
Mhm,
and hope is a predecessor of love.
mhm.
Wow.
Yeah, I am not at 100% in my life doing this, but it is an overarching theme that has affected every choice I make. I have to weigh it against, um, am I helping, or am I trying to lead someone down a path? Am I trying to fix? Um, uh, I used to talk about the difference between fixing something and repairing something. And the difference for me is that repair comes as humans when we choose to make change. We transition into a different way of thinking, or a different action, or a different belief system. Fixing is what somebody does to me to get me up and going and on the road again. And sometimes helping hurts when we attach that fix to it. And so if we say help comes before hope, then that's the only outcome we're looking for, is to give that person hope. So whatever help it is, taking someone's cart at Costco and putting it back in the rack for them, or whatever, whatever great and small acts of kindness are all helps that indicate our core value, who we are, what guides us. And that continuity will carry us into our workplace, into our family life, into our relationships with strangers, and dealing with conflict, which are all
Mm,
big stuff right now.
yeah.
We've got a lot of conflict. And so if I'm helping instead of this polarizing win-lose, if my outcome is to give you hope that as your neighbor, we can coexist with different points of view because we share a common hope. It may not look the same to us, but we have a goal in mind that is common. If we care about one another in common, then we don't second guess everything everyone does, or filter it through that filter in our mind that is projection or mind reading, where we say, what would we do in this situation? Well, that's what they're doing. And we don't do that consciously, but it is, anytime I hear mind reading, I usually think, yeah, that's what you would do, because that's what I would
Wow.
do. And so it helps me back off and say, my help comes unconditionally. There's no strings attached. It's to provide hope. And I may not be the person who gets to see that turn into love, faith, trust, but I have sowed seeds along the way.
Man. Um, for those of you, our time as far as in worship is come to a close. But for those of you who are listening to this, I'm going to encourage you because I'm really excited about continuing this conversation because literally my mind just went whoop because I've never heard of this connection between help, hope, and love. And we're going to continue that on the second part of this. Oh, and you can listen to that over at YouTube. If you go to Church of the Beatitudes, the website, you can find that connection. But again, as we continue go back to worship, Wendy, I want to thank you so much for this little bit of time, and I look forward to the rest of our discussion.
Thanks.